Wouldn't you like to pause from your busy day and listen in to experts and homeschool parents like you about the beautiful world of homeschooling? This podcast is designed just for you. Each episode connects you to the best conversations that will give you courage and fill your cup so you can keep pouring into your family every single day. Introducing the Hey Mama Homeschool Show, brought to you by the Old Schoolhouse, your trusted homeschool partner for over 20 years.
Hi, this is Heather with the Old Schoolhouse. Thank you so much for joining me today for episode 39 of the Hey Mama Homeschool Show. When should you teach foreign language and why? For your reference, this is a previously recorded YouTube video of a conversation between your Hey Mama Homeschool Show hosts, Stephanie Morrison and Christine Weller. Both of these ladies live in Canada, which is why you will hear them make several references to life and homeschooling in Canada specifically. Many references to materials to help you teach foreign language in your homeschool are mentioned, so please refer to the show notes for this episode at homeschoolshow.com to get those links. There you will also see links related to different articles that you can find throughout the TOS website, a link to all the foreign languages available with the schoolhouseteachers.com membership, and other resources. I also want to let you know that if you have the TOS app downloaded on your phone, you can now access the fall issue of the Old Schoolhouse magazine. Perfect for fall, you will see articles about growing and canning food, college, teaching writing, grammar, spelling, and more. If you have yet to download the app, visit homeschoolapp.com today.
Salut et bienvenue à the Canadian Schoolhouse live stream, and that is about the extent of my French. But today we are talking about teaching foreign languages. Actually, I shouldn't say that's the extent of my French. That's as comfortable as I feel talking fluently in French.
Right.
I actually have got. I'm really pretty good at writing in French. The speaking in French is. I get that, which is a really good reason. There's a good motivator to teach your kids French or any language you want to learn, because now you're kind of, okay, we're going to learn this together, kids. So that's kind of one of the fun things, and actually really what we've done in our homeschool. You've done a little bit as well, Christine, right?
Yes, we've started a bit of French. It's kind of on and off, but they are still interested. It's just getting into the nitty gritty of okay, well, let's learn some vocabulary, and like you have to write it out, and you gotta conjugate the verbs and all of that stuff. So then it gets a little bit tedious and it's not fun anymore. But they do tend to like speaking. So they'll say, well, how do you say this? And so then they walk around the house talking, using their new phrases that they've learned and stuff. So we've also done a bit of Spanish, which is one of the courses on Schoolhouse Teachers that we can talk about in a bit. But we're slowly. I mean, my kids are still a little bit young, so I'm just you kind of ease it in there for now.
Yeah, exactly. It's the way to do it. So we've got a whole bunch of resources to share with you all. Some from Schoolhouse Teachers. So if you're not a member already, well, we're just going to show you a few reasons how to be a member and why you should be a member. Schoolhouse Teachers is a full curriculum site. You don't have to have resources from anywhere else if you don't want to. I will admit, every once in a while, I have other courses that we do. Not often a lot that I pay for, but sometimes I find some other language stuff, for instance, to pay for in the past that I've done, and other little supplementary stuff that I may pay for. But really, Schoolhouse Teachers is and I can just see all the way through high school. It's got really great courses, great electives. Like I'm surprised now. I started with Schoolhouse Teachers when I started with the company, and I am really surprised. I never heard of it before. I don't know how, because I'm regularly searching. If I'm anything like, or if any of you are like me as far as finding curriculum and as you go through a year or if you kind of take a break, you're kind of next year of school, you kind of think, oh, like I'm going to see what else is out there. And this curriculum isn't working great. Well, lots of times on Schoolhouse Teachers, you can say, this is not working so great for me. I'm going to see what else is on Schoolhouse Teachers. And I've done that a whole bunch of times because there's so many lesson designers that contributed to it. So Schoolhouse Teachers isn't like some other curriculum sites that are just from that company. And so pretty much the teaching style and the way they do things is a lot the same from course to course. They may have several courses to cover the whole curriculum, but they're all kind of taught in the same way. I think that's one of the things that really drew me to use Schoolhouse Teachers as our family's full curriculum site, because I can just say, well, let's look at something else for, language arts, for instance. What can we find for writing? What can we supplement in there for math? So all kinds of good things. So definitely if you are looking for a curriculum and you're thinking there might be something else out there, you want to switch up from what you've got, or if you haven't started yet, maybe you're just a beginning homeschooler, you're thinking, hey, I want to start homeschooling, but your kids are just young ones. There's lots of preschool stuff here. So a great thing to get started with now and get acquainted with everything on the site. Let's just segue right into actually what we have on Schoolhouse Teachers for language learning. And we have it now popular, especially in Canada, is learning in French, like in the public schools. That's always that's a compulsory course, right? So we have so there's lots of different options for French. Not a whole slew of stuff just on Schoolhouse Teachers, but what we really like to showcase is that we're not just doing the main. So we have Spanish as well. So there's Spanish. I think there's a couple levels of Spanish, right?
Yes.
Korean, that was a new one. We just got that one recently, didn't we?
Yep. That was this year. Yeah.
And then our other courses on there. So our language
You'll get
learning.
Latvian.
Yes. What a cool course to have on there. I've never really, I think I've heard of Latvian, but as far as thinking of speaking that, I haven't really. And you know what, like learning a language isn't just, oh, I want to learn that so I can be fluent in it. I definitely want that for myself and my boys to be fluent in French, or at least getting by, right? If not completely fluent. And I kind of like that for ASL and so sign language and Spanish as well. So that's kind of my language learning goals for our family. But there is lots of benefits to learning language. I don't know if we have any of that to directly share right now, but I know we have in different places about the benefits of just learning a language and the parts of the brain that exercises, right? To comprehend different languages. So it's a really good benefit so I've never thought of speaking Korean, but I think we might check that course out, right? And just dabble in these different languages. We've got Korean.
And that Korean one is conversational Korean. So if you were like not looking to really dive into the writing and all of that stuff, because that part is a little bit difficult if you don't have patience, because some languages out there you will need patience. But this one is focused on conversational Korean, so this is really great to learn, and then you can practice together as a family. Sit down for dinner and make a Korean meal, and then have Korean conversation. It's a great idea.
Yeah, just a fun little thing you can do, especially as a family, right? So that everyone just kind of gets that little bit of learning in. ASL, so American Sign Language. I just had to think for a minute what the ASL was. I knew it was sign language, but so American Sign Language, which is certainly our popular one. I think there's 2 or 3 different variations of sign language.
Yeah, I know there's,
how we might have the dialect of English, right? Like, we have the English we speak in Canada. There's the English in Ireland,
Britain, yeah, true. Yeah,
that English in Britain, right? Like just Englishes that are using different words and using different. So I imagine that's kind of the same with using, your hands and facial expressions. I know is a big part of that. And Latin is actually one, as a homeschool mom, I've gotten really interested in learning that. Not to necessarily be completely fluent, but I love the idea of learning Latin as a basis for the English language, to
Yep.
better understand where our root words come from. And
Mhm.
actually, I think it would really help, especially one of my boys, really be able to um, get the spelling down, because even in English, some of our spelling, and I don't know for sure, so I haven't started Latin, but stuff I've been reading. We had a great article in our, I think it was just our last issue of the magazine, so the Old Schoolhouse magazine, that was about learning Latin and why to learn it. And it's not
Mhm.
necessarily about to be conversational, as some people might say. It's a dead language, but it's not. It's really not, because any of the Latin languages, so French and Spanish and
Have come from that.
English. So
Mhm.
it's really, we haven't started that yet, but we should probably start that at some point in the next week or two, to doing our Latin, starting with Latin 1 on Schoolhouse Teachers, but we'll get to the, I think there's two levels, isn't there? Two
I
courses
think
for Latin.
yes, I think for yeah.
Yeah, so that just being, and whether it, if you're not a Schoolhouse Teachers member, even as we're talking about these different languages, there's always so many different places, and maybe we can even go on to our spotlight. So if you want to share that link there,
Yep.
And in our spotlight, um, and you know what, I'm just gonna share my screen here, actually, because I just want to go through. For one thing, I want to share a little bit what our spotlights are, but I actually want to share this one we just had out. I think it was last month. I think it was August, and had the and had foreign languages as our focus there. So this is our spotlight on foreign language. We have a spotlight, as we call it, kind of focuses on a certain topic, and companies that offer resources, curriculum, help in that area. So this was our August one, being on a learning language. So Greek and stuff, that is Latin and Greek, really biblically based as well. And then we've got a few, here's another Latin kind of course, but as you can see, we've got these top ones here, this Whistle Fritz, which I love that name. It's especially French and Spanish for little ones, right? I think it's a little bit, but I think this would be really fun, as you already said there, Christine, about you're kind of like, your kids are a little bit younger and you're kind of dabbling in it more. I mean, that's exactly what we should be, like, get them. And I think this one is even like preschool age. That it's actually good for. The Greek and stuff. So that is a company that I'm quite familiar with. Just reading about what they have there. But again, I think I've read from them about the importance of learning Latin. Again, it's not
Yes, I
so you
see.
can be fluent, but although we totally can be, we should have that. We should have that goal. Another company that does Latin courses, and then this one, Flip Flop Spanish, is one for learning Spanish. So there's really, I kind of like to share that in a way to show that there's like no lack of
Resources.
resources in the home education industry to be able to feel like you can't teach a language. And teaching a language, you don't need to know it yourself. Like,
Nope.
I mean, I'm pretty decent in French. I went a few years in high school in French, and I've done learning in French, post, like, education, just on my own for years, right? I'm still not fluent in it, but I'm not consistent with it either.
Yeah.
But I enjoy learning, French. But there is, for your kids learning, I really haven't seen one course where you have to feel like you need to know the language at
Mhm.
all. And all the courses go about it in different ways. So if you're really looking for that language course, definitely go and search out different options out there. Even just put in like homeschooling, and then whatever language, like homeschool teaching French, and teaching Spanish, whatever language you're trying to get in your home. Just do a search for that, and you're going to find so many options. You can get overwhelming, actually, how many options there are. And I always like to tell people who are considering or just starting homeschooling, like, you don't need to be, you've actually got better resources than what your kids would ever be able to be exposed to in an institutional setting, educational, which is what makes homeschooling so superior to any other education, because you get to customize it to your child, as opposed to putting your child in an institutional setting where they have to adapt to whatever's being taught. And for some kids, that's really difficult. That's not, and so difficult to the point where they're not really able to learn, and they have a great hatred for learning. I have my oldest son, definitely that was his experience in most of school, and which made me want to homeschool my younger two. But the resources that are available and the community that's available. So we have, Schoolhouse Teachers is our curriculum side of the old Schoolhouse. And within that, we're creating community. And I know a lot of other companies that do that as well, whether they have the full curriculum or there's no lack of Facebook groups. There's no lack of homeschooling support online. And then especially locally, there's always seems to be homeschooling groups, especially in any bigger areas. You got even a small town of a certain population. There's going to be enough people there homeschooling where you can get connected to homeschooling groups and other homeschoolers, right? There's no lack of that at all. So what else have we got for resources here?
Well, another good point, you were talking about, the benefits of homeschooling. I mean, you can actually, if you're prone to traveling, this is a great opportunity, because homeschoolers can pick up and go whenever they feel like it. That's the beauty. You're not set to a certain schedule. So like, if you ever thought that, hey, I want to travel with my kids, this is the perfect opportunity. And we have an example on our site from Janet Losol. I'm always tempted to say Lasso. Sorry, Janet. But she wrote about her experiences with her kids, and just being immersed in a culture. So you take a trip and just throw yourself right in there, and you'll find that you'll automatically pick up some key phrases just like that. And you're deep diving right into the culture at the same time, and learning about their food and their celebrations and their way of life. And so I'll put that in there just to get some encouragement. But definitely that's another option that you could do, is just go visit another country, learn about their languages that way.
And this, Janet didn't even, although she has been to other countries and done language that way, she has a great book, Adventure by Chicken Bus. Chicken Bus. I think I got that right. Anyway, it's her talking about her travels around South America. Somewhere there. So and her kids coming along with them, right? It was her whole family was with them, and because they were homeschooling, right, they could go wherever and be able to teach their kids. But this one is specifically about going to Quebec. So they spent, I think it was just the summer, and she put her kids in camps that were there, and they were completely immersed in that language in Quebec. So it's definitely more like Quebec City kind of area where really people do just speak French all the time, because there is, especially with Quebec being in Canada, right? There's areas, I know you can go to Montreal and get by pretty good and not even know English. I've known some people, I found that surprising actually at now I realize there's more and more people in Montreal that don't necessarily speak French, but I've known a few people who lived in Quebec and didn't speak French. It's like, how do you do that? Like, because it is almost its own little country on its own. I figured at least everything is, and I think you can get by. Again, it's better to know the language, and once you live there, I think for a period of time, you're able to pick up on it enough. So that ability to be able to be like immersed in that culture and in that language and just hearing it. One of the things I'm really wanting to do myself to just up my fluency is listening to podcasts. So that is actually, so depending on the age of your kids, that may or may not work. like they may, but I think actually even just having it in the background. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. I want to listen to more. And I've done that a little bit in the past. I found some good podcasts that, and they're not just about, they don't just speak French, but they're podcasts specifically to help people learn French. So they'll speak a lot, but then they'll have a part of that podcast where they're breaking down the conversation that was had, and most of them are about like actual lives and actual people and actual the one I was listening to, and I can't really remember, but it's a pretty popular French podcast. If you just search French learning podcast, you'll find it. I think it had something with cafe in it, but they would be doing French all over the world, right? Because they're different types of French and different types of culture. So not only are you learning, you're getting that language, but you're learning so much about other cultures just listening to these podcasts. So great thing to have in the background while the kids are doing whatever. They may not listen to it intently, but they are picking up on that, right? So the more that you can even just listen to it, even if you're not speaking it out loud, the more that your brain is going to, be able to use that then you can have conversational French. And I think that's like the real when your kids, or even yourself, even adults, start being able to kind of speak the language, then getting the grammar part and really being able to write properly in the language, I think is better when that kind of comes after you get a bit of fluency in the language. That's just been my experience anyway. That might not be the same for everybody. Where I remember my learning French in school is the opposite, right? Like you lots of conjugating verbs I knew, and lots of like learn this word and this word and this word, right? But they weren't necessarily whole phrases or a lot of whole phrases, right? You were learning about the writing before you went into the speaking. So a little bit of a different learning approach.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that. If you still watch TV, I know people are using a lot of streaming services now, but what I used to do when my kids were even younger, you just kind of stop on that French channel.
Yeah.
The one that I don't even know which if it was CBC French or one of those local channels. And you just leave it on there. Sometimes they would have little cartoons that they recognize, but they were speaking French, and you just kind of leave it on there. And all of a sudden, and I can tell you, Dora the Explorer will definitely teach your kids a few key Spanish phrases. So, like even this morning, my 5-year-old was sitting there doing his schoolwork, and he's like, "Ayúdame." And I'm like, okay, I'll come help you. But he learned that from Dora. So, there's so many options out there to just, if you just want to have it on and just, just expose them to it, and see where it goes, because you never know. Like, there are so many jobs available out there if you can speak a second language. Translators are always needed, especially here in Canada when there are so many other cultures across the nation. So, I mean, the sky's the limit when you can pick up another language. So you never know if you expose them to it and they really just pick it up. Like, go for it.
Just kind of opens up a whole, other opportunities for, and again, French may be popular here in Canada, but lots of other languages that when you have a firm understanding of that, like you said, for translating, and sometimes just translating on paper too, but definitely being a translator where you can, hear what's being, speak and be that translator either for that person on a personal level, like on an individual level. I know translators that work, and then they're just called. So say they have somebody that, I don't know, somebody that comes into the hospital and doesn't speak
exactly
English, or at least English really, really fluently, right? Like,
right.
So then you need somebody there to help out with that language barrier so that they're getting the proper care and they're being understood properly, right? But lots of neat job opportunities, I think, when you know another language that can open up. So I'm just kind of thinking in my mind here, what other things come up for foreign languages? We've covered what we have in Schoolhouse teachers. We've encouraged, I actually, you know what came up for me is just overall with homeschooling. So we'll end off on my little how great just teaching your own kids is. And it's not, it doesn't have to be about like that the public school isn't good enough, although it's not good enough for your kids. And I'm not going to get into any details. I could go on a whole wave of things, but it's not, because they are teaching big groups of people. And I actually even put like private schools into that as well, even though it may be a little bit of a superior education, maybe the compared to public school, and maybe the class sizes are smaller, and maybe the direction, especially if you're Christian, that would be a popular choice. Like, definitely get out of the public school. But even that group setting, you are going to be able to give your children a more a higher quality education, because you know your kids the best, and because you can adapt as they grow and as they change. You can easily change curriculum. You can give them the time. That's a big thing too, and you'll hear people talk about it again and again, how if kids are home educated, that real formal type of education should really only take 2 or 3 hours of your day.
Yep.
And then you have hours and hours, much more than a child has if they go to public school or a private school. There's still full days, 5 days a week. We do 4 days, and if the boys really wanted to, they could easily have their work done in a couple hours. And then there's a few things we do together, but that's really, I consider that just more like family time. Like
Yeah,
we'd probably
exactly.
do that stuff anyway if they did go to school, right? We learn that stuff together anyway. But it certainly encourages me to do more of that family learning, because I'm not shipping them off for the day 5 days out of the week. And then they just have, really, for some kids, it only ends up being like 3 or 4 hours of awake time before they have to go to bed, so they can get up, get on that bus or walk to school or whatever the situation is, to be able to get an education. Meanwhile, you can give your children that education, because there's tons and tons of resources available where you don't need you don't need to have had any teacher education. You just need to have that desire to want to organize that part of their life. And we're talking specifically about foreign languages today, but I could talk about we could come on here and have it on every topic where we talk about that. Some kids have a much harder time with math, and I'll tell you that and even with reading. And I was really surprised. We actually looked up, because we were watching, I think it was something we were watching on World Watch, actually. So a little shout out to World Watch. If you don't know what that is, go and check it out. It's an awesome, Bible-based Christian news, like 10 minutes of news. So you get to know what's going on around the world, and it's not all like top news stuff. Sometimes they're talking about animals, and sometimes they're given just little bits of information about all kinds of different things. So being able to have something like that is so where was my thought? It was a World Watch show. So World Watch is awesome. Anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent of that. But what the what I was getting on is they had a news story there, and then we went to, one of my sons looked up what the literacy rate in Canada. Do you know what it is, Christine?
No.
Because they were talking about the literacy rate. The story was about somebody else. She was an adult, and she lived in it was South America somewhere. I forget where. Anyway, she went back to school. She just didn't have the opportunity to go to school. So now she was actually going with her kids. She was like 29 years old, and she was going with her, 8 or 9 or 10-year-old, and they were going to school. So it was a little story about that. And the literacy rate was like 53% for Canada.
Wow.
So that is saying above A. So that doesn't mean that people can't read at all. It just means they can't read above, I think it was
A
like
certain
grade 4 level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe I can relate to that a little bit, because as a like writing online content for different places over the years, that's what you're kind of told. Write for that like grade 4 level, right? And unless
Mhm.
you're doing, specialized kind of writing, but just general, what you're writing for, write for that level of about grade 4. And I thought it was mostly for the reasons of, because you can just read it and comprehend it quicker, which is probably partly that too. But then when I heard that the Canada's literacy rate, so and I
Mm.
say that to say that my 11-year-old and my 14-year-old too, but my 11-year-old being younger, it can spell better and has a better grasp of the English language than my 27-year-old does, that has a high school diploma. That was really not great
Mhm.
education. So he went to school, he got this diploma, he got a high school diploma, but yet his literacy rate, I don't know where he would be, but I would say grade 3 or 4, as far as, no, he's come, and he's great in what he learns. He's learned a lot since then. In fact, I think he's learned better being out of school, because that was
Mhm.
just a really hard atmosphere for him. So that's my little ending, like, rah rah for educating your own kids. Like, continue to raise them. You raise them from 0 to 4ish, continue to do that. And
Yeah.
just, it's parent-led education. It doesn't mean you have to be the teacher to know everything. We've got
But you're
resources for
guiding
that.
them. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're guiding them.
yeah,
And you
exactly.
have control as to what they're absorbing. So,
What they're influenced by.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, this was fun. This has like got me all encouraged down in my own foreign language learning. I think maybe we'll start that Latin course today. Maybe tomorrow. Today's kind of busy. Tomorrow, maybe.
Yeah.
Actually, Wednesday is generally our day we don't do learning. I've got one of them catching up on it because he didn't do very good Monday or Tuesday. But my one boy has the day off, so of learning. You go do whatever you want today. So,
Yeah, we've got days like that. And then
uh-huh.
yep, other days are just okay, let's catch up. Let's catch
Yep.
up. And see, that's the
Up
beauty
or
of
down.
homeschool. It's okay. There's no
Uh-huh.
set schedule
Yeah.
unless you really want the set schedule.
Unless you
But
want to have that. Yeah, some people like that. Go for it if that's your way of being. That's the beauty of educating your kids. You make that whatever you want. Ah.
exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.